Hi fashion designer and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to share with you how to make this faux shirring on your favorite blouse and also make a square neckline bustier. If you want to know how it's done, stay tuned. So I'm going to start by marking two lines, a vertical and a horizontal line. Right here on the shoulder line, I'm going to mark half of my armhole round, and this line is going to serve as the chest line. Then you need to mark shoulder to bust point line. In my case, is 11 inches. And then you need to mark from shoulder to waist line, which is you're going to mark the front pattern first. So mine is actually 16 inches. And then you square a line across the pattern paper. Don't forget to mark your shoulder to under bust. Mine is actually 14 inches. Now I'm going to mark half of my shoulder measurement and then extend this point, which is 8 inches. I'm going to extend it all the way to the chest line. Then we are going to mark the shoulder width. The shoulder width is around 3.5 inches. Then you're moving on to creating a shoulder slope. Go down from the shoulder line by 1 inch, then connect these 2 points. Then on the chest, mark quarter of your bust round circumference plus 1 inch for seam allowance. Then on the waistline, I'm going to mark quarter waist measurement plus 2 inch, which is 1 inch for dart and the other inch for seam allowance. Then you want to connect these 2 points from the chest line all the way to the waistline. To create a dart, you need to measure the distance from one bust point to another bust point, then take the measurement divided into 2. I've marked 4.5 and I'm going to extend this line all the way to the bust point. In between this line, mark half of an inch for a dart, then extend it to the under bust line as shown on the screen. Then on the bust point line, if you have a bigger bust, go down by 1.5 inch. It will help for your pattern not to be pointed around the bust. So for the center line, right on the bust point line, I'm going to go down by 2 inches, which is going to be the width of my side dart. And then I'm going to connect it to the bust point line over here. And the side dart is complete. Now we want to go ahead and create the square neckline. For the square neckline, I'm going to divide the shoulder line by 2 and then extend the center line to the bust point line as shown on the screen. Now, once we're done with that, decide how low you want your front neck depth to be. So mine is going to be low by 5.5 inches. Now, to avoid any gaping, you want to create a dart of around half of an inch. Over here, I'm going to mark half of an inch and then connect it to the bust point line. So at this dart, we're not going to make use of it when we cut out the pattern. So to creating the armhole, I am going to mark 1 inch right on the chest line. And then right on the armhole line, you want to divide this by 2. And then you go in by half of an inch. And then when you are done, I'm going to take my curve ruler and then connect these points. And our armhole curve is done. Because this pattern is not going to have any sleeve, so to avoid any gaping, I'm going to create an armhole dart of around half of an inch right here. And then I am just going to also remove it, so we're not going to make use of it when we also cut out the pattern. So our front pattern is complete. Now it's time for us to draft the back pattern. For the back pattern, you also need to measure yourself from shoulder to waist at the back. Mine is 14 inches. And then you're going to mark the half of your armhole round. That's the one that I'm actually marking here. And then I'm going to extend this line, which is going to be an armhole line. And then you want to mark down 1 inch. This is the 3-inch width for the back neckline, and then connect these 2 points to create a shoulder slope. And then once you're done, mark a center point on that shoulder line. Then you want to extend it all the way down to the chest line. Then once you are done doing so, you need to determine how low you want your back neckline to be. Mine is going to be around 5.5 inches. It's almost the same as the front. So once you're done there, you want to create a dot right on the armhole. So I am going to find the center point of this line, and then I'm going to just create a line across the pattern, then mark half of an inch of a dot right there. So we are going to remove this dot again when we cut out our pattern. So for the armhole, I'm going to mark half of 1 inch. Then I'm just going to reconnect it to that center line on the armhole line. And then from here, you need to add quarter of your bust round circumference plus 1 inch of seam allowance. And on the waistline, quarter of your waist round circumference plus 2 inches, 1 for seam and 1 for dot. Then connect these 2 points. Then again, mark your dot, which is half of your apex to apex. Then extend this line all the way to the chest line, and then take a half an inch dot on both sides. Now, right on the shoulder line, I want to extend this line here on the shoulder, right on the dot point, like so. And this part here, and also just extend the dot. So this part here is going to form one panel for the side back piece, and this one is the one that is going to be used as a false shirring. So I'm going to cut out the front pattern. Don't forget to smoothen out the lines. Now for the front pattern, I am going to just cut out this shoulder dot and then just close it by tapping it down like so. And also I'm going to close this side dot. Now once it's done, I want to just go ahead and just fix the lines on the side, including here around the armhole. And the side front pattern is complete. Don't forget to transfer your notches, which will be easier when we cut on fabric. For the back pattern, I am just going to cut out the center back piece, which is going to be on fold, and also the side back piece. Then you will also want to just close out the armhole dot like we did for the front, and your pattern is complete. For the back panel piece, I am going to mark double of the back panel piece. Remember that this side back piece is actually on fold. So I am going to double this back piece, and I'm going to taper it down and then go ahead and mark double of the width of the back piece. And our patterns are complete. Now it's time for us to go ahead and cut these pattern pieces on the fabric. So over here, this is a front panel piece. I went ahead and I added half an inch seam allowance except on the side, because we did add 1 inch, but here in between we did add half of an inch except on the center front. Now for the back panel piece, I added half of an inch seam allowance on the shoulder, on the armhole, except on the side seam, and also at the bottom I added half of an inch. For the back piece, I did cut it in on fold. As you can see, this is how it looks, and it will be shrinking once we add elastic. So I'm going to take my both front panel pieces and I'm going to match the notches. I'm going to start from the bottom to add the side front pieces with a straight line using half of an inch seam allowance. I am going to add a lining for this blouse, and I'm going to place them right sides facing with the main fabric and then sew right here on the shoulder. And this is how it turned out once you are complete. You want to go ahead now and push the seam towards the lining and do a top straight stitch. I'm going to take the back panel piece, and this is how it looked. And now we are going to mark here, which is right on fold here on top. I'm going to first mark half of an inch, and then once I've marked this half of an inch, my lines are going to be 1 inch apart. So I'm going to mark 1 inch and then another elastic casing of around half of an inch. So I'm going to continue doing that all the way to the bottom of this back panel piece. Now once I am complete, you need to go ahead, take this to the sewing machine and sew right where you've marked the lines. Now once you're done, this is how the pattern will look. So I've got this elastic, which is a very slim one. You want to cut them according to the width of your back pattern. So because this pattern is actually on folds, I am going to double them up like this, double the elastic like this, and then cut. I'm going to cut 6 pieces of this elastic because I've marked 6 elastic channeling on my fabric. So to insert this elastic, I'm going to use a simple tool, which is my hairpin, and I'm going to insert it right on the elastic channel. Make sure you pin the ends of the elastic down because you don't want it to disappear as you're busy inserting your elastic. So once you're complete, you want to do this for the rest of your pattern. And this is how it looks. I did sew the sides with a straight stitch to secure the elastic. You take your back panel piece, side piece, and then you want to place the shirring, and then you take your lining and then you sandwich this piece together. I've done this on the both sides, and this is how it turned out. Now to assemble the whole blouse, we need to take your front panel piece and your back panel piece, and then right on the shoulder you want to match the seam right sides facing, including the lining. Pin it down and then sew a straight stitch right on the shoulder like so. Now once that is complete, you want to go ahead now and close the armhole. So I'm going to open up the armhole for the lining, including the main fabric, and then I'm going to pass these two like so. I'm going to sandwich the other side of the blouse like so, so that we'll be able to sew the armhole. And I'm going to continue pinning it down. Done doing this, take this to the sewing machine and sew half of an inch seam allowance. So I'm going to repeat the same process onto the other side. So once you're done sewing, you want to pull the correct side through that channel like so, and then take this to the sewing machine so that it looks nice and neat. I'm going to repeat the same process for the other side. This is how it looks. And then I'm going to roll the other piece or the other half of the blouse in between this channel and then pin it down, and this is how it came out. So joining the side seam, I am going to take the right sides facing like so, and then join them right on the seam for the lining, including the main fabric, and then make sure that you pin this on the side and then sew it using 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then we want to go ahead and attach the bottom of this blouse. I went ahead to cut 2 panel pieces, which is double of my waist measurement, and I'm first going to hem the bottom of this panel, then later on go ahead and gather the top of these panels. Then we're going to join these 2 panel pieces right on the side and sew 1/2 inch seam allowance. Once you're done doing this, I am going to go ahead now and attach this 2 panel pieces at the bottom of this blouse and join 1/2 inch seam allowance. And this is the final result of the blouse. I really love how it turned out, and also the back looks amazing. I hope this tutorial helped you. As for me, see you on the next one.